back. You're 5 o'clock.
Copy.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Colton Ogburn, and as much as it pains me to say this, Lex Luthor had some valid points in the new Superman movie about the great danger of metahumans, especially in a world where they have existed for 3 centuries. And Superman is just the latest entry to an ever-growing power gap in the DCU that makes humanity more like little ants in a world of giant boots and magnifying glasses. This is why, to an extent, Lex Luthor was right. And hey, just a quick reminder that ScreenCrush is on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, and be sure to check out our merch store. We've got some great Superman-inspired parody shirts that I cannot wait to show you guys a little later in the video. Okay, so on the surface, Lex Luthor is a total POS. He is a hateful, conniving, malicious, envious, cruel billionaire who views everyone as beneath him. But it is this mentality that shields Lex from the naivete that most seem to have when it comes to metahumans, especially Superman. Lex is awful, but he is also a genius, and he has seen firsthand how absolute power corrupts absolutely. He is a very self-aware villain, and that fact is portrayed perfectly when he admits to Superman that he is of course driven by pure envy. And it is also in this scene where Lex makes the case that the sheer existence of Superman illuminates how weak humanity truly is. And Lex believes it is his calling to be the sole hope for humanity in destroying Superman, restoring order, and rebalancing the food chain. So something I really loved about this movie was how lived in this universe feels. It was a little jarring at times how nonchalant everyone was about giant monsters attacking the city, but if you think about it, it makes sense. Especially in a world where metahumans and monsters have been around for 300 years. Hell, even in the MCU, where metahumans have been around a much shorter span of time, it's getting to the point where crazy shit just happens all the time, and the MCU has become far less of a reflection of our world with superheroes dropped in the mix, but now more so an extravagant world where we, the audience, are being dropped into the mix. And it's honestly a very meta point that we have reached with these movies. General audiences have reached a point where these comic book movies can get bigger and weirder than we ever could have imagined them being even just 10 years ago. And they don't have to worry about overwhelming the audience anymore. We, in our own world, have become so accustomed to superhero films and the extravagant, so the movies are adapting to keep up. And again, in a meta way, that ties directly into why Lex is right about the dangers of Superman and the escalation of power that he is seeing in his world. We, in our own world, are advancing at a pace unseen in human history, with technological advancements such as self-driving cars, artificial intelligence, holograms. Hell, you can have robots deliver food to your door. And this is all stuff that just a few years ago would have only been seen in a movie's idea of the future. But now, here we are, and every day we're unfortunately getting closer and closer to blowing ourselves up. Humanity is evolving to a point that we are going to ultimately be the reason for our own extinction. And that is what Lex sees on the horizon for humanity as the metahumans, the gods if you will, as well as the monsters grow and continue to expeditiously outpace humanity. There is a great line from Vision in Captain America Civil War that perfectly illustrates this rapid advancement toward our own doomsday.
Our very strength invites challenge. Challenge incites conflict. And conflict breeds catastrophe.
Now, Civil War is one of the greatest films that has tackled this subject matter of absolute power corrupting absolutely in the realm of superheroes. And it did a great analysis onto what level metahumans needed to be put in check. As Vision said, the emergence of the Avengers has resulted in the emergence and escalation of even more Avengers-level threats. In the DCU, this is dialed to 11. These mere mortals are living in a world where their cities are being attacked by gods and monsters on a daily basis. In a way, the very presence of Superman begets the presence of super threats. Sure, these mortals would be up shit creek without a paddle if they didn't have superheroes to come in and save them, but Lex seems to be of the opinion that the existence of superheroes is why we have supervillains. And to an extent, he's right. All of the evil things that Lex does in this movie as a supervillain are driven by his envy of Superman, are driven by the existence of Superman. Theoretically, if Superman didn't exist, if metahumans didn't exist, maybe we wouldn't see Lex do all the crazy shit that he's doing. Then again, we live in a world without superheroes, but we do have some pretty crazy billionaires. So here shortly, I will discuss the fact that Lex being a billionaire presents some rich irony to his disdain for Superman. Yeah, Superman has unchecked power, but so does Lex. Lex has more money than God, resulting in him being able to do virtually anything, arguably more than even Superman is capable of.
But you know what? Like, Mr. Terrific and Lex Luthor are so smart. There might be a genetic anomaly happening with those guys. Lex couldn't possibly be a metahuman.
I mean, Lex replicated the Big Bang and created these super dangerous portals that could suck the entire planet into a black hole. He has jailed thousands of people who weren't given any due process. He has the corrupt power and influence to orchestrate an entire war. And on top of all of that, he created his own Superman that is just as powerful or perhaps even more powerful than the original that Lex claims is so dangerous. Lex thinks that because he has control over Ultraman, that somehow makes him not as dangerous. But what Lex doesn't seem to realize is that with him having a Superman of his own that he controls, he has become the very thing he seems so determined to destroy. Lex likes to fearmonger about Superman's strength, while Lex essentially has that exact same strength with his little puppet Superman that he fully controls. Lex is evil Superman, and on top of that, he has even more power and influence than the original Superman. Not only does Lex have access to all of Superman's strength via Ultraman, but he's got billions of dollars at his disposal and the ability to create entire universes on a whim. By the end of this movie, despite Lex's defeat, he still ultimately proves in a roundabout way that yes, he was right about how dangerous this amount of concentrated power can be. The only problem is he desperately needed to take a look in the mirror and realize that the danger he was warning of was himself all along. Lex is a small man, and he has always fed off of the fact that all of the ants beneath him had to look up to see him in his ivory tower. He loved towering over the rest of the world. And Lex is right about everything that is scary about Superman, but he doesn't seem to realize that he, Lex, embodies that same great threat to humanity. You see, unchecked power can grow to a point where it's irreversible, such as with nuclear weapons. A few decades ago, I think we all could agree that the best way to achieve peace is if no country had the ability to completely incinerate another country with a bomb. But now we've crossed that bridge, we've crossed that threshold, and ironically, it could be argued that every country having a nuke could be the best deterrent for nuclear war. Here's another example. Take democracy. It's an idea that has lasted for nearly 250 years here in America, and it is an idea that has had success in many other countries in recent history. But if you look at world history from a macro level, democracy can come across as a relatively new and naive way of governing. Democracy is such a fragile thing that when lost, it is damn near impossible to get it back. So Lex is right about the fact that power without accountability and without governance by the people can and will lead to tyranny. So I guess in a way, he and Superman serve as a good check on each other. In this movie, Superman may be right about the fact that Baravia and its leader are corrupt and genocidal, but really what right does Superman have to take matters into his own hands and threaten a country's leader with torturous tactics to usher in the foreign policy that he wants? It's very much like when the US government inserts itself into conflicts around the globe, claiming that it's there to help, when in reality it's trying to install its own regime somewhere that it has no business being. But on the flip side of that argument, there have been incidents where something really heinous is happening in the world, and you can make the moral argument that it would be immoral not to intervene. The Baravian leader, Glarkos, claims that he is liberating the people of Jarhampur and that his invasion and use of violence is a good thing. Now, we all of course know that that's absolute bullshit, and it's a reflection of our own modern and not so modern politics. But we have to step outside of our own bias of thinking that we are the good guys and ask the question, in what way is Superman different from Glarkos? Superman crossed a border that he had no business crossing, just like Glarkos. He used violence and intimidation tactics, just like Glarkos. And he did this all in the name of doing the right thing, like Glarkos. Now, without being dense about it, yes, of course the core difference here is that Superman is honest honest and good-intentioned, whereas Glarkos is a lying, selfish tyrant who is looking to commit a genocide. So one of these guys is actually trying to do good, and one of them is trying to do what's only good for him and him alone. But the question then becomes, if we're going to have like a philosophical discussion about it, what is good? How do we measure goodness? And is what's good for one person necessarily good for someone else? And that's a question that is way above my pay grade, so I'm going to bring in my philosopher friend, Nick. But before we do that, I do want to make Lex proud and do my little capitalistic plug for our merch store. We've got some great new Superman-inspired designs up on the store right now. We've got Brian Griffin as Crypto. We've got the It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Your Mom. We've got this really great one of the Fantastic Four rocket passing Superman's rocket when he's a baby, and many, many, many more. Shopping our merch store is the best way to support our channel. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let me get Nick to explain what good really means in the context of Lex and Superman.
So this is an excellent question, and the real problem is that philosophers have been struggling with this kind of stuff for thousands of years. So the issue that will come up, though, is the realization that as soon as I say that this is a difficult issue, what is good, how do we determine it, who gets to determine it, immediately we, and probably the listeners, you watching it at home, are going to say, well, no, but we already know, we already have that answer. But that's exactly how Superman feels, but that's also how Lex Luthor feels. So the real issue here is a matter of, when we try and figure out what is good, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but most of us are just kind of using our feelings and our intuitions. So when we engage with something like Superman, we go, well, we like what Superman is doing, we like how he's thinking, but that's really just a feeling. It's an intuition. It's not something that we can articulate. The problem is how many people have used their intuitions to make determinations about what is good, and we look back on it and we go, that was a horrible intuition. Think about things like slavery, right? Or the Holocaust, or any innumerable number of events that human beings have said, yeah, I feel good about that. And then we look back on it later on and go, that's ragingly racist. That's ragingly sexist. That's a matter of genocide. So yeah, we happen to agree with Superman, but has he actually done the work necessary to justify that what he is doing isn't just a matter of following his feelings?
Well, and you make a good point about when you think about that perception of good, and like you brought up slavery and, horrible things from our past, that made me think of what Superman's biological parents wanted him to do by sending him to Earth. You could argue that, yes, what they were asking of him is a very tyrannical, genocidal, just hate-filled thing. But the way they see it as good. They don't view themselves as evil. They think that their planet has been destroyed. They want their people to live on. They think that Earth is a primitive planet, and they want to better the planet and enrich, humanity and merge with what they view as, them being a superior species. God, that does sound pretty bad. But
yeah, as you're articulating it, you're like,
yeah,
oh.
yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I view them as bad, but you could see how they totally would view themselves as the good guys.
There's a lot of stuff that I love about this, to some degree different, and certainly at least in terms of film presentation of both his biological parents and his adopted parents. It gets deep and it's rich. But the fact of the matter is, what you're pointing out, what I really hear is they're great parents. They're really, really good parents. They give up themselves, their potential, their own opportunity to save themselves in order to save their kid. And then they have the opportunity to send their kid to somewhere else that has like a red sun so that he can be normal like everyone else. Or they're like, we'll send him somewhere, where he could be a god. Who wouldn't? What parent wouldn't? Who wouldn't immediately be like, yes, check. Go lord over them, son, because you will be, in essence, immortal there. Who doesn't want that for their kids? Yeah, you want your child also to be moral, but not necessarily mortal. Then they're also representing their people. And they're saying, okay, while you're at it, son, getting to be an immortal, a god amongst plebes, you also have the opportunity to help continue on our DNA, our lineage, both in terms of the actual genetics, but the teachings potentially of our people. So go and multiply. So it's really hard from their perspective to see what they're doing as wrong. You have to take a much more objective moral stance to start saying things like, no, that is wrong. And that's the problem. That's the heart of morality. The heart of morality is you're almost always in a position where you either go from the interior, where you're like, this makes a lot of sense for me, for the people that I love, for the things that I want to see accomplished, or you go from the outside, which almost always requires some level of self-sacrifice that we're not willing to engage. Oh, I have to recognize the fact that what I'm doing through this act of slavery is doing something to other people that I wouldn't want done to myself. So, okay, I guess I should give up the riches and the power and all the stuff that I would like for this other objective end.
Well, and I love that juxtaposition between, like you were saying, his biological parents. Yeah, what parent wouldn't send their son somewhere where they could be a god? But there's something even more morally good about Pa and Ma Kent, and I would argue this is also the case in Man of Steel. I know a lot of people don't like, when Clark says, well, what, was I supposed to let those people die? And Kevin Costner says, maybe. I've always viewed that as him saying, I am not here to tell you what to do. And then to quote the new Pa Kent, your choices are what make you who you are. So them presenting Clark with the moral structure and the ability to make his own choices, knowing full well that they raised him in a way that he will make the right decision without having to tell him, this is what you need to do. I think that would be a great argument for creating a more true good, even though we could totally get off on a whole bent on, well, what is true good? Okay, so there's one thing that happened in this film that I feel has kind of been brushed over and is going to have some major repercussions throughout the DCU, probably as soon as Peacemaker Season 2, which James Gunn has come out and said is a direct follow-up to Superman. And this is, of course, the fact that a member of a privately owned superhero team illegally entered a foreign country and murdered its head of state. Yes, I'm talking about the scene where Hot Girl says that she is not Superman and she drops Glarkos to his death. Now, yes, Glarkos is a giant SOB, but does that give Hot Girl the right to be judge, jury, and executioner? I think not.
You are not judge, jury, or executioner.
And I think that the owner of the Justice Gang, Maxwell Lord, as well as Hot Girl and the rest of the Justice Gang are going to have to answer for this incident in future installments of the saga. It may even be a primary focus in Peacemaker Season 2. And I'd be really curious to hear Superman's take on Hot Girl's actions and the political climate surrounding metahumans following this assassination. I'm thinking it will likely have some major ramifications and could be what gives Lex Luthor and Amanda Waller the green light they need to put metahumans in check. It could even be the final push that Lex needed to make Planet Watch a reality. Remember, at the beginning of the film, he was trying to sell the government on this idea of Planet Watch. Well, now with this having happened and Lex being in prison, Amanda Waller's prison, we could see the two of them work together to make Planet Watch a reality. Now, despite Lex's defeat, his master plan of making the world question the role of metahumans may actually have been a success, all because of Hot Girl's decision to kill Glarkos. Now, the Justice Gang did put out a statement in defense of their girl and her decision to kill Glarkos, adding to the eeriness of the line at the end of the film that metahumans are the ones making the decisions now, and proving that while Lex is the very thing that he's been fear-mongering about, he's still kind of right about how dangerous they all are. But hey, those are just our thoughts. Let us know yours down in the comments below, and if you're new here, be sure to subscribe, smash that bell so you get notified every time we upload a new video. For ScreenCrush, I'm Colton Ogburn.